I need to tell you something that's been weighing on me, and honestly, I wish someone had told me this years ago, because it would have saved me so much confusion and heartache. Last spring, I completely ignored an astrological event that everyone in the spiritual community was talking about. I thought it was just hype, just another transit that would come and go without really affecting my life. I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. What I didn't know then, what I'm going to share with you now, is that certain cosmic alignments don't just influence your love life. They literally open portals that determine whether you meet your person or miss them entirely. And the event I skipped? It was one of those rare moments when the universe basically hands you a golden ticket to soulmate connection. But only if you're paying attention. Here's what happened. About 6 months after I dismissed that transit, I started noticing something strange. 3 of my closest friends, all of whom had been single for years, suddenly met their people within weeks of each other. Not just casual dating. I'm talking about the kind of connections where you know immediately that this person is different. The kind where everything just clicks. And when I asked them when they first met these people, every single one of them said it happened during that exact astrological window I had ignored. That's when it hit me. I had been so focused on being logical, on not getting caught up in what I thought was just spiritual wishful thinking, that I completely missed my own opportunity. And the thing is, I wasn't alone. I started talking to other people who had similar experiences. People who either seized that cosmic moment and found their person, or people like me who let it pass by and spent months wondering what they had missed. So why am I telling you this? Because right now, as you're watching this, we're approaching another one of these rare alignments. And I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. I don't want you to look back 6 months from now and realize you were standing at the threshold of something extraordinary and you just walked away because you didn't understand what was happening. Let me be clear about something. I'm not here to tell you that astrology controls your life or that you have no free will. That's not how this works. What I've learned, sometimes the hard way, is that the universe operates on rhythms and cycles. There are moments when the cosmic weather is perfect for certain things to happen, when the energetic conditions align in ways that make the impossible suddenly possible. And love, real soulmate level connection, it has its own cosmic timing. Think about it this way. You can plant a seed any time you want, but if you plant it in winter when the ground is frozen, it's not going to grow no matter how much you water it or how much you believe in it. But if you plant that same seed in spring when the soil is warm and the conditions are right, it flourishes almost effortlessly. That's what these astrological events are. They're the spring soil for your love life. They're the moments when the universe says, okay, the conditions are perfect. If you're ready to receive what you've been asking for, now is the time. The event I missed was a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces. For those of you who don't speak astrology, let me translate. Venus is the planet of love and attraction. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, luck, and blessings. And Pisces is the sign of unconditional love, spiritual connection, and divine union. When these 3 forces come together, it's like the universe opens a portal where soulmate energy can flow through with almost no resistance. But here's what nobody tells you about these transits. They don't work the way you think they do. Most people assume that during a lucky love transit, your soulmate is just going to knock on your door and introduce themselves. That's not how it happens. What actually occurs is much more subtle and much more powerful. During these cosmic windows, your energetic frequency shifts. You start vibrating at a level that matches the frequency of your ideal partner. And when 2 people are vibrating at the same frequency, they become magnetic to each other. It's not magic, it's physics. It's resonance. You've probably experienced this before in smaller ways. You think about someone and they text you 5 minutes later. You walk into a room and immediately feel drawn to a specific person without knowing why. You have a random urge to go somewhere you don't normally go, and you end up meeting someone significant. That's frequency matching. And during these rare astrological alignments, That frequency matching gets amplified to an almost supernatural degree. The universe essentially turns up the volume on your magnetic field, making it exponentially easier for you and your person to find each other. But, and this is the crucial part, you have to be in a receptive state. You have to be open. You have to be paying attention to the signs and synchronicities that are trying to guide you. When I skipped that Venus-Jupiter conjunction, I wasn't in a receptive state. I was closed off, skeptical, operating purely from logic and dismissing anything that felt too good to be true. And because of that, even though the cosmic conditions were perfect, even though the universe was probably sending me signs and opportunities, I couldn't see them. I was tuned to the wrong frequency. But my friends who met their people during that time, they were different. One of them had just come out of a difficult breakup and had spent months doing deep healing work. She was raw, vulnerable, and completely open to whatever the universe wanted to bring her. Another had been single by choice for 3 years, focusing on her career and personal growth, and she had reached this place of genuine contentment where she wasn't desperately seeking a relationship, but was open to one if it felt right. The third had been actively working with a therapist on her attachment patterns and had just had a major breakthrough about why she kept attracting unavailable partners. Do you see the pattern? All 3 of them were in a state of openness and readiness. They had done the inner work. They had cleared out the old patterns and beliefs that were blocking them. And when the cosmic window opened, they were standing there with their arms wide open, ready to receive. That's the secret nobody talks about. These astrological events don't create ultimate connections out of thin air. What they do is create optimal conditions for connections that are already destined to happen. They remove the obstacles. They clear the path. They make the meeting that might have taken years to orchestrate happen in a matter of weeks or even days. But you have to meet the universe halfway. You have to be doing your part. And your part isn't about being perfect or having your life completely together. It's about being emotionally available, being willing to be seen, being open to possibilities that don't fit your predetermined checklist of what your ideal partner should look like. I learned this lesson the hard way. After I realized what I had missed, I made a commitment to myself. The next time one of these rare alignments came around, I was going to show up differently. I was going to be intentional. I was going to do the inner work beforehand so that when the cosmic window opened, I would be ready. And that's exactly what I did. When the next major love transit came around, a Mars-Venus conjunction in Scorpio, I prepared for it like it was the most important event of my year. I spent the weeks leading up to it clearing out old relationship baggage. I journaled about what I actually wanted in a partner. Not what I thought I should want, but what would genuinely make me happy. I worked with a coach on my fear of vulnerability. I updated my dating profiles not because I was desperate, but because I wanted to signal to the universe that I was open and ready. And you know what happened? 3 days into that transit, I met someone at a coffee shop. We started talking because we were both reading books by the same author. The conversation flowed so naturally that 2 hours passed without either of us noticing. We exchanged numbers. We went on a date 2 days later. And within a month, we both knew this was different. This was real. Now, I'm not saying that every cosmic alignment is going to bring you your soulmate. That's not how it works. But what I am saying is that these windows create conditions where meaningful connections become exponentially more likely. They're opportunities. And opportunities only work if you're prepared to seize them. The reason I'm sharing all of this with you now is because we're entering one of these windows again. And this one, based on the astrological signatures, might be even more powerful than the ones I've experienced before. I'm talking about a configuration that astrologers are calling a once-in-a-generation alignment for soulmate connections. And if you're someone who's been searching for your person, if you've been wondering when your time is going to come, this might be it. But here's what you need to understand. This window won't stay open forever. These cosmic conditions are temporary. They build, they peak, and they pass. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not in a receptive state, If you're still carrying around all the old baggage and patterns that have been blocking you, you could miss it entirely, just like I did the first time. So what does being ready actually look like? It's not about being perfect. It's not about having your life completely figured out. It's about being honest with yourself about where you are and what you're carrying. It's about being willing to release the stories you've been telling yourself about why life hasn't worked out for you. It's about being open to the possibility that your person might not look like what you've been imagining, but they'll feel right in a way that transcends logic. I've been studying these patterns for years now, and I've noticed something that most people completely miss. The universe doesn't just send you one sign during these cosmic windows. It sends you three distinct signals that you're in the right place at the right time, that the person you're about to meet or the connection you're about to deepen is cosmically supported. And if you know how to recognize these signs, you can navigate these windows with so much more confidence and clarity. The first sign is what I call the echo. This is when you start hearing the same message from multiple unrelated sources within a very short period of time. Maybe you're scrolling through social media and you see a post about being open to love. Then you're listening to a podcast and the host says something almost identical. Then a friend calls you out of nowhere and brings up the exact same theme. This isn't coincidence. This is the universe trying to get your attention, trying to prepare you for what's coming. I remember during that Mars-Venus conjunction I mentioned, about a week before I met my person, I kept hearing this phrase everywhere. Be where your feet are. I saw it on a coffee cup at a bookstore. I heard it in a yoga class. A colleague mentioned it in a completely unrelated conversation about work. At first I thought it was just one of those things where you notice something because you're thinking about it. But looking back, I realized the universe was literally telling me to be present, to stop living in my head, to actually show up in my physical reality, because that's where the meeting was going to happen. The second sign is the disruption. This is when your normal routine gets interrupted in ways that feel annoying at first but turn out to be redirections. Your usual coffee shop is closed, so you have to go to a different one. Your friend cancels plans last minute, so you end up going somewhere alone. You miss your train and have to take the next one. These aren't obstacles. They're course corrections. The universe is literally moving you into position. One of my friends who met her husband during a Jupiter-Venus transit told me this story that still gives me chills. She had plans to meet a girlfriend for dinner at their usual spot. The friend cancelled 2 hours before. She was annoyed because she'd already gotten ready and was looking forward to it. But instead of just staying home, she decided to go to a different restaurant she'd been wanting to try. She sat at the bar because there were no tables available. The guy sitting next to her was also there alone because his dinner plans had fallen through. They started talking. 6 months later they were engaged. Now, was that just luck? Maybe. But I've heard too many stories like this to think it's random. During these cosmic windows, the universe becomes an active participant in your love story. It moves pieces around. It creates circumstances. It orchestrates meetings that seem like chance but are actually deeply intentional. The third sign is the feeling. This one is harder to describe, but you'll know it when you experience it. It's this sudden sense of anticipation. Like something is about to happen but you don't know what. It's an energetic shift that you feel in your body before your mind can make sense of it. Some people describe it as butterflies. Others say it feels like electricity. For me, it was this weird combination of excitement and calm. Like I was standing on the edge of something significant, but I wasn't afraid. This feeling usually shows up a few days before the actual meeting. It's your intuition picking up on the energetic frequency of what's coming. And if you're paying attention to it, if you're honoring it instead of dismissing it as anxiety or overthinking, it can guide you to exactly where you need to be. But here's what I want you to understand about these signs. They only work if you're in a state of receptivity. If you're closed off, if you're cynical, if you're so hurt from past experiences that you've built walls around your heart, you won't see the echo. You won't follow the disruptions, and you won't trust the feeling. You'll explain them away. You'll rationalize them. You'll miss them entirely. And that brings me to something really important that I wish someone had told me earlier. The biggest block to meeting your soulmate during these cosmic windows isn't bad timing or bad luck. It's unhealed attachment wounds. It's the stories you're still carrying about what happened in your past relationships. It's the beliefs you've internalized about your worthiness of love. I'm going to be really honest with you about something that was hard for me to admit. When I missed that first Venus-Jupiter conjunction, it wasn't just because I was skeptical about astrology. It was because, deep down, I didn't actually believe I deserved the kind of love I was asking for. I had been through a really painful breakup a year before, and even though I thought I had moved on, I was still carrying this belief that maybe I was too much, too intense, too complicated for someone to really love me fully. And that belief, that story I was telling myself, it created an energetic block. Even if my soulmate had walked right up to me during that transit, I probably would have found a way to sabotage it or convince myself it wasn't real. Because when you don't believe you're worthy of something, you unconsciously reject it when it shows up. This is why the preparation phase before these cosmic windows is so crucial. It's not about making yourself perfect or fixing everything that's wrong with you. It's about identifying the stories and beliefs that are blocking you and consciously choosing to release them. It's about doing the inner work that creates space for love to enter. For me, that work looked like therapy. It looked like journaling every morning about my relationship patterns and where they came from. It looked like having uncomfortable conversations with friends about the ways I was showing up in dating that weren't serving me. It looked like sitting with the discomfort of my own vulnerability instead of numbing it or running from it. And I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to give up, when I thought maybe I was just meant to be alone, when the work felt too hard and too painful. But I kept going because I knew that if I didn't clear out this old stuff, I would keep attracting the same types of relationships, the same patterns, the same disappointments. One of the most powerful exercises I did during this time was something my therapist called the relationship inventory. I made a list of every significant relationship I'd had, romantic and otherwise, and I wrote down what I had learned from each one. Not just the surface level lessons, but the deep ones, the patterns I kept repeating, the red flags I kept ignoring, the ways I abandoned myself to keep someone else comfortable. And what I discovered was shocking. I had been unconsciously seeking out partners who were emotionally unavailable because that felt familiar. My father had been emotionally distant when I was growing up, and some part of me had internalized the belief that love meant working really hard to get someone to see you, to choose you, to finally give you the attention and affection you were craving. So I kept choosing people who made me work for it, who kept me in that state of anxious pursuit. Because that's what my nervous system recognized as love. Once I saw that pattern clearly, once I understood where it came from and how it was playing out in my adult relationships, I could start to change it. I could start to notice when I was being drawn to someone because they felt familiar versus someone who was actually good for me. I could start to choose differently. And that's when everything shifted. That's when I became truly ready for the kind of love I had been asking for. Not because I had fixed myself or become perfect, but because I had done the work to understand my patterns and create new ones. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. Do I really need to do all of this just to meet someone? And the answer is, you don't have to do anything. But, if you want to maximize these cosmic windows, if you want to be truly ready when your person shows up, then yes, this inner work is essential. Because here's the thing about soulmate connections. They're not just about finding someone who checks all your boxes or makes you feel good. They're about finding someone who mirrors back to you the parts of yourself you need to heal and grow. They're about finding someone who challenges you to become the fullest version of yourself. And if you haven't done any of your own inner work, if you're still operating from old wounds and patterns, that mirroring is going to feel really uncomfortable. You might even run from it. I've seen this happen so many times. Someone meets their person during one of these cosmic windows. The connection is intense, undeniable, electric. But within a few weeks or months, They start to pull away because the relationship is bringing up all their stuff. All their fears about intimacy. All their abandonment wounds. All their control issues. And instead of seeing that as an opportunity for growth, they see it as proof that the relationship isn't right. This is why preparation matters. This is why doing the inner work before these windows open is so important. Because when you've already started to heal those wounds, when you've already started to understand your patterns, you can stay present when things get uncomfortable. You can recognize that the discomfort is part of the process, not a sign that you should run. Let me tell you about something that happened with the person I met during that Mars-Venus conjunction. About 2 months into our relationship, we had our first real conflict. It was about something relatively small, but it triggered this massive fear response in me. My immediate instinct was to shut down, to pull away, to protect myself, and in past relationships, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have created distance, convinced myself that the conflict meant we weren't compatible, and slowly sabotaged the connection. But because I had done the work to understand that pattern, because I knew where it came from and what it was trying to protect me from, I was able to do something different. I was able to stay. I was able to communicate what I was feeling instead of running from it. I was able to be vulnerable about my fear instead of hiding behind defensiveness. And you know what happened? He met me there. He didn't shame me for my fear. He didn't make me feel like I was too much. He just held space for it, and we worked through it together. And that moment, that choice to stay instead of run, it deepened our connection in a way that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't done my inner work first. This is what these cosmic windows are really about. They're not just about meeting someone. They're about meeting someone when you're ready to actually build something real with them. They're about being in a place where you can recognize your person when they show up and you can stay present with them even when it gets hard. And I want to be clear about something. The inner work I'm talking about isn't just for people who have had traumatic relationships or major issues. We all have patterns. We all have wounds. We all have stories we're carrying that affect how we show up in love. Some of them are obvious and some of them are subtle. But they're there. And if you want to make the most of these cosmic opportunities, you need to be willing to look at them honestly. One pattern I see all the time, especially in the spiritual community, is this idea that your soulmate is going to complete you or fix you or make all your problems go away. And I get why that's appealing. We all want to believe that there's someone out there who's going to make everything better. But that's not how it works. Your soulmate isn't your savior. They're your mirror. They're going to reflect back to you both your light and your shadow. And if you're not willing to look at your shadow, if you're not willing to own your part in your relationship patterns, you're going to struggle no matter how cosmically aligned the timing is. I learned this the hard way in a relationship I had in my 20s. I thought he was my soulmate. The connection was intense. We had this instant recognition of each other. But the relationship was also incredibly turbulent. We fought constantly. We triggered each other constantly. And I kept thinking that if we just loved each other enough, if we just tried hard enough, we could make it work. But what I didn't understand then was that the intensity wasn't a sign that we were meant to be together. It was a sign that we were both bringing a lot of unhealed stuff into the relationship. We were both using each other to avoid looking at our own patterns. And no amount of cosmic timing or soul connection could fix that. We had to do our own work first. That relationship eventually ended, and it was devastating. But looking back, I can see that it was one of the most important relationships of my life because it showed me exactly what I needed to heal. It showed me the patterns I was repeating. It showed me the ways I was abandoning myself. And it gave me the motivation to finally do something about it. So when I talk about preparing for these cosmic windows, when I talk about doing the inner work, I'm not talking about becoming perfect. I'm talking about becoming aware. I'm talking about being willing to look at your patterns honestly and take responsibility for your part in them. I'm talking about being willing to heal the wounds that are keeping you stuck in cycles that don't serve you. And here's what I've discovered. When you do that work, when you really commit to it, these cosmic windows become so much more powerful. Because you're not just hoping the universe will send you someone who fixes everything. You're showing up as someone who's ready to co-create a healthy, conscious relationship. You're showing up as someone who can recognize real love when it appears and who has the tools to nurture it and grow it. That's the foundation. That's the preparation. But now I need to tell you about something that most people completely overlook when it comes to these cosmic windows. And honestly, this might be the most important part of everything I'm sharing with you today. There's a difference between being ready for love and being ready for your soulmate. And I know that sounds like semantics, but it's actually a crucial distinction that determines whether these cosmic alignments work for you or not. Being ready for love means you're open to dating. You're willing to put yourself out there. You're emotionally available enough to connect with someone. That's great. That's necessary. But being ready for your soulmate requires something deeper. It requires you to be in alignment with your authentic self. Let me explain what I mean by that. Your soulmate isn't just someone who loves you. They're someone who sees you. The real you. Not the version of yourself you present to the world. Not the persona you've crafted to be acceptable or likable. But the raw, unfiltered, sometimes messy truth of who you actually are. And if you're not living in alignment with that truth, if you're still performing or hiding or pretending to be someone you're not, your soulmate can't find you. Because the frequency you're broadcasting isn't your real frequency. I spent years of my life trying to be the kind of person I thought someone would want to be with. I tried to be more easygoing when I'm actually quite intense. I tried to be more spontaneous when I actually love structure and planning. I tried to downplay my ambition because I was afraid it would intimidate people. And you know what happened? I attracted people who liked that fake version of me. And then I was stuck in relationships where I couldn't be myself. Where I had to keep up this exhausting performance just to keep them interested. It wasn't until I started living more authentically, until I started owning the parts of myself I had been hiding, that everything changed. And I'm not going to lie. It was terrifying at first. I was convinced that if people saw the real me, they would reject me. But what actually happened was the opposite. The people who weren't right for me naturally fell away. And the people who were right for me started showing up in ways that felt almost magical. This is what I mean by alignment. When you're living authentically, when you're being true to yourself, you emit a very specific energetic signature. And your soulmate, the person who's meant to be with the real you, they're tuned to that exact frequency. But if you're broadcasting a false frequency, if you're pretending to be someone you're not, you're essentially hiding from your person. You're making it impossible for them to find you. So when I talk about preparing for these cosmic windows, this is a huge part of it. You need to get really honest with yourself about where you're not being authentic. Where are you performing? Where are you hiding? Where are you shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be? Because those are the areas that are blocking your soulmate from finding you. I did an exercise during my preparation phase that was incredibly revealing. I made two lists. On one list, I wrote down all the things I was pretending to be or pretending not to be in order to be more attractive to potential partners. On the other list, I wrote down who I actually was when no one was watching. When I wasn't trying to impress anyone or be anyone other than myself. The gap between those two lists was shocking. I realized I had been hiding so much of myself. My intensity. My need for deep conversation. My love of solitude. My spiritual practices. My ambition. My sensitivity. I had convinced myself that these things made me too much or too weird or too difficult. So I had been downplaying them or hiding them completely. And then I made a commitment. I decided that for the next 3 months leading up to the cosmic window I was preparing for, I was going to live as authentically as possible. I was going to stop performing. I was going to stop hiding. I was going to show up as exactly who I was and trust that the right person would be attracted to that. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because when you stop performing, when you stop trying to be what you think people want, you have to face the fear that maybe the real you isn't enough. Maybe the real you is too much. Maybe the real you is unlovable. Those fears come up loud and clear when you start living authentically. But I pushed through them. I started being more honest in my conversations. I stopped pretending to like things I didn't like just to have something in common with someone. I started talking about the things I was actually passionate about instead of keeping them hidden. I started setting boundaries around my time and energy instead of being available for everyone all the time. I started dressing the way I actually wanted to dress instead of the way I thought would be most attractive. And you know what happened? My entire life shifted. Not just my dating life, everything. I started attracting different kinds of friendships. I started getting different kinds of opportunities in my work. I started feeling more energized and alive because I wasn't constantly exhausting myself trying to be someone I wasn't. And then, during that Mars-Venus conjunction I mentioned, when I met my person, the connection was different from anything I had experienced before. Because I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to be impressive or likable. I was just being myself. And he was being himself. And there was this immediate recognition. This sense of, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. That's what happens when you're in alignment. When you're broadcasting your authentic frequency. Your soulmate recognizes it immediately. There's no confusion. No games. No wondering if this is right. You both just know. But here's something else I need to tell you about these cosmic windows. They don't just bring you your soulmate. They also bring you tests. And if you don't understand this, you might mistake a test for a failure or a sign that the universe isn't supporting you. What do I mean by tests? During these heightened energetic periods, you might encounter people who seem like they could be your person but aren't. You might have intense connections that feel significant but turn out to be temporary. You might face situations that challenge your new boundaries or your commitment to authenticity. These aren't obstacles. They're not the universe being cruel or playing games with you. They're opportunities to practice what you've been learning. They're chances to prove to yourself and to the universe that you're really ready. That you're not going to fall back into old patterns just because someone attractive shows up. I experienced this during my preparation period. About 2 weeks before that Mars-Venus conjunction, I met someone at a party. The attraction was immediate and intense. We had this electric conversation. He asked for my number. We started texting constantly, and for a moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this was the person the universe was sending me. But then I started noticing things. He was inconsistent with his communication. He would be really present and engaged one day, and then disappear for 3 days. He made plans and then cancelled them last minute. He talked a lot about his ex and how he wasn't sure he was over her. All the red flags I had learned to recognize were there. And the old me, the me from before I did all this inner work, would have ignored those red flags. I would have convinced myself that if I just gave him more time, if I just was patient enough, he would come around. I would have abandoned my boundaries and my standards because the chemistry was so strong. But I didn't do that. Because I had done the work. I had learned to recognize my patterns. And I knew that this wasn't my person. This was a test. This was the universe asking me, are you really ready? Are you really going to honor what you've learned? Or are you going to fall back into old patterns the moment someone attractive shows up? So I did something I had never done before. I ended it. I told him that I could see he wasn't emotionally available and that I was looking for something different. And I walked away, even though the chemistry was strong. Even though part of me wanted to stay and see if it could work. I walked away because I knew that staying would mean abandoning myself. And you know what happened? 2 weeks later, during that Mars-Venus conjunction, I met my actual person, and I'm convinced that if I hadn't passed that test, if I had stayed in that situation with the unavailable guide, I would have missed my real opportunity. Because I would have been energetically tied up in something that wasn't right for me. This is why these cosmic windows require so much consciousness and awareness. They're not just about showing up and hoping for the best. They're about being discerning. They're about trusting your intuition. They're about having the courage to walk away from what's not right even when it's tempting to stay. And here's another layer to this that I think is really important. These cosmic windows don't just affect you. They affect everyone. Which means during these periods, There are a lot of people who are suddenly feeling more open to love, more willing to take risks, more energetically activated, and not all of those people are your person. You might have multiple people show interest in you during these windows. You might have several intense connections happening at once, and it can be really confusing trying to figure out which one is the real thing. This is where your inner work becomes crucial, because if you've done the work to understand what you actually need in a relationship, if you've gotten clear on your non-negotiables, if you've learned to trust your intuition, you'll be able to discern which connections are worth pursuing and which ones are distractions. I have a friend who experienced this during a Venus-Jupiter transit. She suddenly had 3 different men pursuing her at the same time. All of them seemed great on paper. All of them were attractive and successful and interested. And she was so overwhelmed trying to figure out which one was right that she almost missed the signs pointing her toward the one who was actually her match. What helped her was getting quiet and tuning into her body. She noticed that when she was with 2 of the guys, she felt anxious and activated, like she was performing or trying to impress them. But with the 3rd guy, she felt calm and grounded, like she could just be herself. That was her sign. That was her intuition telling her which connection was aligned. And that's what I want you to understand about navigating these cosmic windows. Your intuition is your most powerful tool. Not your logic. Not your checklist of what you think you should want. But your actual felt sense of what's right for you. And the only way to access that intuition clearly is to do the inner work that clears out all the noise. All the old programming. All the fear-based decision-making. Now, I want to talk about something that might be uncomfortable, but it's really important. Sometimes these cosmic windows don't bring you your soulmate right away. Sometimes they bring you the final lesson you need to learn before you're truly ready. And if you're not prepared for that possibility, you might interpret it as failure or as proof that this whole thing doesn't work. I've seen this happen with people who enter these cosmic windows with a lot of desperation or attachment to a specific outcome. They're so focused on meeting their person that they miss the deeper work the universe is trying to do with them. And then when they don't meet their soulmate during that window, they feel disappointed or betrayed. But here's what I've learned. The universe is always working in your favor, even when it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes the most loving thing the universe can do is not give you what you think you want because you're not actually ready for it yet. Sometimes there's one more layer of healing that needs to happen. One more pattern that needs to be broken. One more lesson that needs to be learned. And if you can't trust that, if you can stay open and curious instead of getting bitter or giving up, the next window will be even more powerful. Because you'll be even more ready. You'll have even more clarity. You'll be even more aligned with your authentic self. I want to share something really personal with you. After I met my person during that Mars-Venus conjunction, about 6 months into our relationship, we hit a really rough patch. We had a conflict that brought up all my old abandonment wounds, and for a few weeks, I genuinely thought we might not make it. I thought maybe I had been wrong. Maybe this wasn't my person after all. But then I remembered something my therapist had told me. She said that soulmate relationships aren't easy. They're not supposed to be. They're designed to help you grow and heal and become more of who you're meant to be. And that process is often uncomfortable. It brings up all your stuff. It challenges you in ways that feel really hard. And she said that the mark of a real soulmate connection isn't that it's always easy or always feels good. It's that both people are committed to staying and working through the hard stuff together. It's that both people are willing to look at their own patterns and take responsibility for their part. It's that both people choose each other again and again, even when it would be easier to walk away. That perspective completely shifted how I approached that rough patch. Instead of seeing the conflict as a sign that we weren't right for each other, I saw it as an opportunity to deepen our connection. Instead of running away like I had in past relationships, I stayed. I communicated. I was vulnerable about my fears, and he did the same. And we came through it stronger. We came through it with more trust, more intimacy, more understanding of each other. And I realized that this was part of what the cosmic window had brought me. Not just a person, but an opportunity to heal in relationship. An opportunity to break my old patterns and create new ones. This is what I want you to understand as you prepare for these cosmic windows. They're not just about meeting someone. They're about transformation. They're about becoming the version of yourself who's capable of sustaining the kind of love you've been asking for. And that transformation doesn't end when you meet your person. It continues throughout the relationship. So as we approach this next cosmic window, as you prepare yourself to be ready for what the universe wants to bring you, I want you to think about this not just as a chance to meet your soulmate, but as a chance to step into a completely new way of being in relationship. A way that's more authentic, more conscious, more aligned with who you really are. And I want you to trust that whatever happens during this window, whether you meet your person or you learn a crucial lesson or you have an experience that prepares you for the next window, it's all part of your journey. It's all leading you exactly where you need to go. The universe isn't random. These cosmic alignments aren't accidents. They're invitations. They're opportunities. They're the universe saying, I see you. I hear you. I know what you've been asking for, and I'm creating the perfect conditions for it to happen. But you have to meet me halfway. You have to do your part. You have to be willing to show up authentically, to release what's not serving you, to trust the process even when it's uncomfortable. And if you can do that, if you can really commit to that level of consciousness and awareness, these cosmic windows will change your life, not just your love life, your entire life. Because when you do this work, when you step into this level of authenticity and alignment, everything shifts. Your relationships shift. Your work shifts. Your sense of purpose shifts. You become magnetic in a way that attracts not just your soulmate, but everything else you've been asking for. So here's what I want you to take away from everything I've shared with you today. First, these cosmic windows are real and they're powerful, but they only work if you're in a receptive state. Second, being in a receptive state requires inner work, healing old wounds, releasing old patterns, and living authentically. Third, the signs will come, the disruption, the feeling, but you have to be paying attention to recognize them. Fourth,